Ice cream. In the middle of war, while fighting. German prisoners of war couldn't believe what they were seeing when they arrived at American camps in World War II. American soldiers eating ice cream like they were at a summer picnic, not fighting the largest war in human history. Ice cream ships crossing the Atlantic, ice cream barges floating in Pacific, ice cream factories on aircraft carriers, ice cream trucks following armies across Europe. The United States military spent millions of dollars in 1940s money making sure American soldiers could have ice cream, while German soldiers were starving, Japanese soldiers were eating grass, and Soviet soldiers were sharing one rifle between 3 men. This wasn't just about dessert. This was psychological warfare. This was American industrial power turned into frozen dairy products. This was the moment German POWs realized they hadn't just lost battles. They'd lost to nations so wealthy, so powerful, so absurdly productive that it could ship ice cream to the front lines while simultaneously building 50,000 bombers, 300,000 trucks, and enough ammunition to fight on 3 continents. German prisoners looked at American abundance, the ice cream, the cigarettes, the coffee, the chocolate bars, the white bread, and understood something their leaders never told them. They never had a chance. Let's talk about how ice cream became a weapon of war, how American logistics turned luxury into standard ration, and why German POWs eating better in American camps than German soldiers at the front wasn't accident. It was strategy. This is the story of how United States won World War II with industrial capacity so overwhelming that it made ice cream in combat zones just to prove it could. Subscribe for more stories about American logistics that won the war. Let's begin. The story starts with problem: morale. World War II dragged on longer than anyone expected. Soldiers spent years away from home, fighting in deserts, jungles, frozen tundra, and military leadership understood that keeping soldiers happy, keeping them willing to fight, required more than just food and ammunition, required creature comforts, required tastes of home, required things that reminded soldiers they were fighting for civilization worth defending. American military studied morale extensively during First World War and interwar period, conducted surveys, analyzed what kept soldiers motivated, interviewed veterans about what mattered most during long deployments, and discovered something interesting that contradicted traditional military thinking. Small luxuries mattered more than big speeches. Soldier who got hot meal, clean socks, and mail from home fought better than soldier who got inspiring speech but cold rations. Soldier who could smoke cigarette, drink Coca-Cola, eat chocolate bar felt connected to home, felt like he was still part of American life, not abandoned in foreign hell. This understanding influenced every aspect of American military planning. While other nations focused purely on combat effectiveness, weapons, tactics, training, American planners added an entire category: quality of life. How do we keep soldiers comfortable? How do we maintain connection to civilian life? How do we prevent psychological breakdown from extended combat exposure? Answers led to revolutionary logistics programs that prioritized soldier welfare alongside combat capability. Ice cream became symbol of this philosophy. Ice cream was quintessentially American, associated with childhood, summer, happiness, normalcy. Ice cream was what you ate on dates, at baseball games, with family on Sunday afternoons. Ice cream was civilian pleasure, peacetime luxury, symbol of prosperity and abundance. Bringing ice cream to war zones said, "You're still American. You're still part of that world. We haven't forgotten you. This war will end, and when it does, you'll return to life that includes ice cream and all the other good things." But there was deeper reason, more cynical perhaps, but equally important: comparison. American military leadership understood psychological impact of abundance on both friendly troops and enemy forces. When American soldiers had luxuries that enemy soldiers couldn't imagine, it reinforced belief that America was winning, that American system was superior, that sacrifice was worth it because they were fighting for a nation that could provide these comforts even during total war. And when enemy soldiers, especially prisoners of war, saw this abundance, saw American soldiers eating ice cream while their own armies starved, it broke their will to resist. POW who saw American wealth, who experienced American generosity, who ate better as prisoner than as soldier for his own country, that POW wasn't going to escape back to his unit. That POW was going to sit tight, wait for war to end, maybe even help Americans, because why would he return to army that couldn't feed him when enemy army gave him ice cream? The psychological warfare aspect was deliberate. American intelligence services understood that treating POWs well, far better than Geneva Convention required, would pay dividends. Every German POW who went home after war would tell stories about American abundance. Every Japanese POW who survived captivity would remember American generosity. These stories would influence post-war attitudes, would make occupation easier, would help transform enemies into allies. Ice cream was a small part of larger strategy to win not just war, but also peace that followed. 1941, before Pearl Harbor, American military was already thinking about ice cream. Navy had ice cream machines on major ships, battleships, carriers, cruisers, as standard equipment since 1930s. Sailors considered ice cream essential morale booster during long deployments. Army had ice cream facilities at major stateside bases, but these were standard peacetime installations, nothing special, just what you'd expect at a well-supplied military base with access to civilian infrastructure. Pearl Harbor changed everything. December 7, 1941, Japan attacked, and suddenly America was at war. 4 days later, Germany declared war on the United States. America faced a two-front war across 2 oceans against enemies who had been preparing for years. Millions of American men would be drafted, trained, equipped, and shipped overseas to fight in places most had never heard of: North Africa, Sicily, Pacific Islands, the jungles of Burma, the frozen Aleutians. Military logistics planners immediately faced enormous challenge. How do we supply armies fighting on opposite sides of the globe simultaneously? How do we maintain supply lines stretching thousands of miles across submarine-infested waters? How do we keep soldiers fed, equipped, armed, healthy, and motivated while fighting in every climate imaginable? Most nations would focus purely on essentials: food, ammunition, fuel, medical supplies. American planners decided to include creature comforts as essential category. This wasn't frivolous decision made by soft-hearted officers. This was cold calculation. Soldier with high morale fights better, takes fewer casualties, requires less medical care, causes fewer discipline problems, and most importantly, doesn't break psychologically under extended combat stress. Ice cream became priority in this calculation. Not top priority, obviously. Ammunition, food, fuel, medical supplies came first, but priority nonetheless, ranked alongside cigarettes, coffee, mail service, and recreational facilities. Military allocated resources, contracted civilian ice cream companies, commissioned specialized equipment, and created logistics network specifically for delivering frozen desserts to combat zones. This wasn't afterthought. This was deliberate policy decision at highest levels of military command. The engineering challenges were substantial and shouldn't be underestimated. Ice cream requires refrigeration maintained at specific temperatures: too warm and it melts, too cold and it becomes too hard to serve. Requires clean water for mixing. Requires milk or cream or suitable dairy substitutes. Requires sugar, a commodity in short supply globally during war. Requires flavorings: vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. Requires power source for refrigeration equipment. Requires trained personnel to operate the equipment. Requires maintenance and repair capabilities. Requires distribution system to get the finished product from production facility to soldiers quickly before it melts. All these requirements had to be met in combat zones. deserts reaching 130 degrees, jungles with 100% humidity, frozen tundra at -40, aboard ships rolling in heavy seas, on islands with no infrastructure, in liberated cities with destroyed utilities. Most armies struggled to deliver basic rations consistently under these conditions. American military decided to deliver ice cream. The solutions developed were ingenious. Engineers designed portable ice cream makers that could operate in field conditions using various power sources, electrical generators, vehicle engines, even hand cranks for small units. Chemical engineers developed stable ice cream mixes that could be transported as powder, stored without refrigeration, then reconstituted with water at point of use. Logistics officers created distribution networks that treated ice cream as priority cargo alongside essential supplies. 1942, Navy commissioned first floating ice cream parlor, converted concrete barge, not self-propelled, but towed by tugboats, with industrial refrigeration equipment powered by diesel generators. Barge was stationed near Pacific Island bases where construction battalions were building airfields and naval facilities. Sailors and Seabees could take small boats to barge, line up at serving window, receive ice cream cones or cups, sit on deck eating while looking at ocean. Sound absurd? Consider the alternatives. Men working in tropical heat, loading cargo, building runways, repairing equipment, fighting occasional Japanese attacks, living in tents on coral atolls thousands of miles from home, with no entertainment except what military provided. These men faced heat exhaustion, tropical diseases, psychological stress from isolation and combat. Providing ice cream gave them something to look forward to, brief pleasure that broke monotony, a reminder that someone back home cared about their welfare. The concrete barge worked so well that Navy built more. Each major island base in Pacific got floating ice cream parlor. Henderson Field on Guadalcanal got one. Espiritu Santo, major logistics base, got larger facility capable of serving thousands daily. Ulithi Atoll, fleet anchorage, got multiple barges. Anywhere Navy concentrated forces for extended period, ice cream barges appeared. Then Navy took concept further, ice cream ships. Not barges, but actual self-propelled vessels whose primary mission was ice cream production and distribution. Most famous was converted tanker operating in Western Pacific starting 1943. Ship was designated as ammunition ship on paper, made it sound more legitimate, but crew called it ice cream ship and everyone knew what it really did. The ice cream ship was an engineering marvel. Below decks, entire cargo spaces were converted into refrigeration compartments with industrial-grade cooling systems. Production area had mixing equipment, pasteurization units, freezing machinery, storage tanks. Ship could produce 10 gallons of ice cream every 7 minutes running at full capacity. Daily production capacity was over 10,000 gallons. Storage capacity was 2,000 gallons at any time, though storage rarely filled because demand always exceeded supply. Ship operated on a circuit around the Pacific, visiting major fleet concentrations. When 3rd Fleet or 5th Fleet, same ships, different commanders depending on who was operating, concentrated in an anchorage for rest and refitting after operations, ice cream ship arrived within days. Small boats ferried ice cream from ship to carriers, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, submarines. Every vessel in fleet got allocation based on crew size. Every sailor, from Admiral Halsey to newest recruit, could have ice cream while sitting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles from the nearest civilian ice cream parlor. Production process was surprisingly sophisticated. Raw ingredients arrived at major supply bases like Pearl Harbor as concentrated or powdered forms, dried milk, sugar, chocolate powder, vanilla extract, stabilizers, emulsifiers. These ingredients were loaded aboard ice cream ship in quantities sufficient for weeks of production. Ship's crew, specially trained in ice cream production, many recruited from civilian dairy industry, mixed ingredients according to recipes developed by Army Quartermaster Corps and Navy Supply Corps working with civilian ice cream manufacturers. Water quality was critical. Can't make ice cream with salt water, and freshwater supplies aboard ships were precious. Ice Cream Ship had its own water purification system, producing water pure enough for ice cream production while not exhausting ships' drinking water supplies. This required sophisticated desalination equipment, filtration systems, quality testing, major engineering investment just for ice cream. Once mixed, ice cream base was pasteurized, heated to kill bacteria, then rapidly cooled. This required precise temperature control. Then base went into freezing units where it was churned while freezing, incorporating air to create smooth texture. Finished ice cream was transferred to storage compartments maintained at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. From there, it was dispensed into insulated containers for distribution to fleet. Aircraft carriers were a special case. Largest carriers, Essexes, Yorktowns, Lexingtons, had their own ice cream production facilities built into ships during construction or added during refits. USS Lexington, for example, had a fully equipped ice cream parlor with production capacity of several hundred gallons daily. Carrier's crew numbered 3,000 men. If every man wanted ice cream daily, that required substantial production capacity. Lexington's ice cream facility operated continuously. Production crew worked in shifts, maintaining steady output. Ice cream was served in crew mess halls as dessert option with dinner. Special occasions, after successful operations, holidays, ship anniversaries, entire crew received ice cream regardless of normal rationing. Pilots returning from combat missions received ice cream priority, part of post-mission recovery process. Flight deck crew working in tropical heat had ice cream available during breaks. Why such investment in ice cream for carriers specifically? Carrier operations were most stressful assignment in Navy. Pilots faced high casualty rates, psychological stress of combat flight operations, constant danger. Flight deck crew worked in extreme danger, jets of flame from aircraft engines, propellers spinning at deadly speed, aircraft landing and taking off continuously. One mistake meant death. Below decks crew maintained complex machinery under pressure, knowing their ship was primary target for Japanese forces. Carrier commanders understood that maintaining morale under these conditions required every advantage. Hot food, clean berthing, mail service, recreational facilities, and yes, ice cream. A pilot who knew ice cream waited when he landed was a pilot with something positive to focus on during dangerous mission. Flight deck crew member who could get ice cream on break was a crew member less likely to make a fatal error due to heat exhaustion or stress. The psychological impact on combat effectiveness was measurable. Carriers with good food and morale programs, including ice cream, had lower accident rates, better mission completion rates, higher re-enlistment rates. This wasn't coincidence. A comfortable sailor was an effective sailor. Stressed, miserable, poorly fed sailor made mistakes, got killed others. The concrete barge worked so well that Navy built more. Each major island base in Pacific got floating ice cream parlor. Henderson Field on Guadalcanal got one. Espiritu Santo, major logistics base, got larger facility capable of serving thousands daily. Ulithi Atoll, fleet anchorage, got multiple barges. Anywhere Navy concentrated forces for extended period, ice cream barges appeared. Then Navy took concept further, ice cream ships. Not barges, but actual self-propelled vessels whose primary mission was ice cream production and distribution. Most famous was converted tanker operating in Western Pacific starting 1943. Ship was designated as ammunition ship on paper, made it sound more legitimate, but crew called it ice cream ship and everyone knew what it really did. The ice cream ship was an engineering marvel. Below decks, entire cargo spaces were converted into refrigeration compartments with industrial-grade cooling systems. Production area had mixing equipment, pasteurization units, freezing machinery, storage tanks. Ship could produce 10 gallons of ice cream every 7 minutes running at full capacity. Daily production capacity was over 10,000 gallons. Storage capacity was 2,000 gallons at any time, though storage rarely filled because demand always exceeded supply. Ship operated on a circuit around the Pacific, visiting major fleet concentrations.
When 3rd Fleet or 5th Fleet, same ships, different commanders depending on who was operating, concentrated in an anchorage for rest and refitting after operations, ice cream ship arrived within days. Small boats ferried ice cream from ship to carriers, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, submarines. Every vessel in fleet got allocation based on crew size. Every sailor, from Admiral Halsey to newest recruit, could have ice cream while sitting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles from the nearest civilian ice cream parlor.
Britain received first American ice cream facilities in 1942 and 43 as U.S. forces built up for eventual invasion. Major bases in southern England got ice cream production capacity installed alongside other support facilities. These weren't small operations, industrial-scale factories producing thousands of gallons daily. American soldiers training in England could get ice cream at PX, post exchange, or mess halls. British civilians, under severe rationing with no ice cream production since 1940, looked on in amazement. British rationing was harsh by American standards. Every food item controlled, portions minimal, luxuries non-existent. British child in 1943 might not have tasted ice cream for years. Seeing American soldiers eating ice cream freely created mixed feelings, gratitude that Americans were there to help win war, but also resentment at visible wealth disparity. American military was careful about this, generally restricting ice cream consumption to American facilities rather than flaunting it publicly. D-Day, June 6, 1944, changed everything. Once Allies established secure beachhead in Normandy, logistics buildup began immediately. Within weeks, artificial harbors at Omaha and Gold Beaches handled more cargo than any peacetime port. Within months, supply depots across Normandy held mountains of supplies. Ice cream production facilities were established at these depots starting July-August 1944. The logistics were staggering. Every supply item had to cross English Channel: ammunition, fuel, food, medical supplies, replacement vehicles, spare parts, mail, and ice cream ingredients. German forces were trying to destroy Allied supply lines with air attacks, V-weapons, and sabotage. Despite this, American logistics delivered everything needed, including ice cream. Ice cream production in France used specially designed mobile units, truck-mounted equipment that could be relocated as armies advanced. Units included refrigeration equipment, mixing machinery, power generator, storage capacity. Crew of 4 could produce hundreds of gallons daily. Multiple units were assigned to each army: 1st Army, 3rd Army, 7th Army, so that ice cream production kept pace with advance. Distribution used refrigerated trucks, another innovation. Refrigerated trucks were extremely rare in civilian sector during 1940s. Most businesses used ice boxes or made local deliveries quickly. American military developed a fleet of refrigerated trucks specifically for delivering perishable supplies, including ice cream. These trucks followed armies across France, Belgium, into Germany, maintaining cold chain from production facility to frontline units. The result was that American soldiers fighting in hedgerows of Normandy, forests of Ardennes, urban ruins of Aachen, crossing Rhine River, could receive ice cream deliveries regularly when they rotated to rest areas. Not every day, not at front lines during active combat, but regularly enough that it became expected rather than surprise. German soldiers captured during these operations experienced profound cognitive dissonance. German soldier who spent months eating field rations, hard bread, preserved meat, ersatz coffee, whose sugar ration consisted of occasional small candies, whose concept of dessert was distant memory, that soldier gets captured, taken to American rear areas, and sees GIs casually eating ice cream like it's normal wartime occurrence. First German POWs to experience American abundance were captured in North Africa 1942 and 43 campaigns. Afrika Korps under Rommel had been a formidable fighting force, well equipped by German standards, professional soldiers who believed in their superiority in their mission. These weren't conscripts or garrison troops, these were elite formations that had pushed British forces across Libya, threatened Egypt, fought with skill and determination. Then they surrendered at Tunisia, May 1943, and everything they believed about the war changed. Over 250,000 Axis soldiers, Germans and Italians, became prisoners. They were transported to holding camps, processed, then many were shipped to United States for internment. The journey itself was revelation. POWs traveled on Liberty ships, mass-produced cargo vessels carrying war materials to Europe and returning with prisoners. Even aboard ships, POWs received adequate food, medical care, reasonably humane treatment. Arriving at American POW camps was shock. Geneva Convention required adequate food, shelter, sanitary conditions, medical care. American interpretation of adequate was generous by any standard and luxurious by Axis standards. POW camps were constructed with barracks housing, proper sanitation, medical facilities, recreational areas. Food rations met or exceeded Geneva Convention requirements. Meals included meat regularly, fresh vegetables when available, bread with real butter, coffee, real coffee, not ersatz, and desserts including ice cream. German POW who had been eating black bread and thin soup for months, whose meat ration was occasional small portion, whose coffee came from roasted acorns, whose butter was distant memory, that POW sitting down to meal in American camp with substantial portions of good food, real coffee, and ice cream for dessert couldn't process what was happening. Many initially assumed this was temporary, special treatment for propaganda purposes or to encourage cooperation. Then days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and food remained consistently good. This was normal. This was how America fed its prisoners while simultaneously fighting two-ocean war. POW camps across American South and West, Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, California, held hundreds of thousands of German prisoners by 1944. Camps operated under strict Geneva Convention compliance monitored by International Red Cross and Swiss representatives. But compliance was minimum standard. American camps exceeded requirements substantially. Camp Hearn in Texas, for example, held 5,000 German POWs. Camp had organized recreational programs, educational classes, work details that paid small wages, library, sports facilities, and regular ice cream. POWs worked on nearby farms and ranches. American agriculture faced severe labor shortage with so many men in military. Work was voluntary under Geneva Convention, though most POWs volunteered because it relieved boredom and provided wages they could spend at canteen. After workday picking cotton or harvesting crops, POWs returned to camp, ate dinner in mess hall, and could purchase ice cream at canteen. Ice cream cost few cents, nominal amount from their wages, but availability was regular. POWs could write letters home through Red Cross. Letters were censored, but POWs could and did mention food situation. "We are eating well here, better than you are, probably. Don't worry about my health, I'm gaining weight." These letters, reaching Germany through neutral channels, had devastating impact on home front morale. German families reading that their sons and husbands were eating better as American prisoners than families were eating at home under increasingly severe rationing, that knowledge eroded will to continue fighting. Why sacrifice at home when soldiers were better off surrendering? Why endure bombing and deprivation when enemy treated prisoners generously? These questions didn't have good answers from Nazi propaganda perspective. American military understood psychological warfare value of treating POWs well. This wasn't purely humanitarian gesture, though America did take Geneva Convention seriously, unlike Axis powers. Well-treated POWs cooperated with interrogations more readily. POWs who experienced American abundance told other POWs who told soldiers still fighting through underground communication networks that existed even in combat zones. Word spread. Surrender to Americans isn't death sentence, it's improvement over current conditions. Ice cream became part of interrogation strategy in subtle ways. Interrogator conducting initial questioning of a newly captured POW might offer ice cream as gesture of goodwill. POW who expected torture or harsh treatment, instead getting a friendly conversation and ice cream, was psychologically off balance in ways that encouraged cooperation. Not because POW was a traitor, but because gratitude and relief made resistance pointless. What was the point of refusing to answer questions when the interrogator was being generous and information being requested was tactical rather than strategic? Unit identification, positions, equipment status, things that became obsolete within days anyway. Some German POWs genuinely enjoyed their captivity. This wasn't universal. Hardcore Nazis remained defiant, formed internal camp hierarchies, sometimes intimidated or attacked POWs who cooperated too enthusiastically with Americans. But significant number of POWs, especially those who had never believed in Nazi ideology strongly, conscripts, men who fought because they had to rather than wanted to, found American captivity to be relief. They could wait out war in safety, well-fed, housed adequately, without danger, and return home when it ended. Ice cream symbolized this acceptance of fate. Eating American ice cream meant accepting that America had won, meant giving up pretense that Germany could still achieve victory. Camp newspapers published by POWs themselves, permitted under Geneva Convention, sometimes mentioned ice cream. One camp newspaper in New Mexico ran satirical article comparing current life to combat. Here we have 3 meals daily with dessert. In Russia, we had 1 meal if lucky. Here we have ice cream. In Russia, we had frozen bodies. Here we have beds. In Russia, we had snow. I think I prefer New Mexico. Dark humor, but reflecting genuine sentiment. Many POWs captured from Eastern Front found American captivity to be paradise compared to horror of fighting Soviets. Contrast with American POW treatment was stark and intentional. American POWs in German camps received minimal rations supplemented by Red Cross parcels when available. Conditions varied, some camps were reasonable, others brutal, but generally American POWs suffered from inadequate food, cold, disease, occasional mistreatment. American POWs in Japanese camps suffered horrifically. Japanese military didn't recognize Geneva Convention, treated POWs with contempt, provided starvation rations, imposed forced labor, tortured and executed prisoners routinely. Death rate for American POWs in Japanese custody approached 30%. Americans captured at Bataan, Philippines in '42 died in thousands during death march and subsequent captivity. German and Japanese POWs in American custody survived at rates exceeding 99%. Those who died generally succumbed to wounds received before capture or diseases contracted before captivity. POWs who entered American custody healthy almost universally survived. Many gained weight. This wasn't accident, this was policy. America could afford to treat POWs generously because America had resources. Germany and Japan couldn't afford to feed their own soldiers adequately, much less enemy prisoners. The asymmetry was strategic beyond immediate humanitarian concerns. Post-war reconstruction would require cooperation from defeated populations. Germans and Japanese who experienced or heard about decent treatment as POWs would be more receptive to American occupation, more willing to embrace democratic reforms, more likely to see America as liberator rather than conqueror. This calculation proved correct. West Germany and Japan both became American allies, embraced democracy, developed pro-American populations. POW treatment contributed to this transformation. Pacific Theater ice cream operations faced even greater logistical challenges than Europe. Distances were vast. From California to Tokyo is 6,000 miles with nothing but ocean in between. Islands where forces operated had no infrastructure, no roads, no power, no fresh water, no local food sources. Everything required by military. Every bullet, every gallon of fuel, every meal, every medical supply had to be shipped thousands of miles across ocean patrolled by enemy submarines.
Yet, American logistics delivered not just essentials, but ice cream. This achievement cannot be overstated. Japanese forces throughout Pacific suffered catastrophic supply failures. Japanese soldiers on Guadalcanal starved to death in thousands. Disease and starvation killed more Japanese than combat. Japanese garrison on New Guinea reduced to eating grass and tree bark. Japanese defenders on Iwo Jima had minimal food and no medical supplies. Japanese military strategy expected soldiers to live off the land because supply system couldn't support them. This wasn't just failure of logistics, this was acceptance that logistics were impossible given Japan's limited merchant shipping and industrial capacity. American forces in same locations ate 3 hot meals daily, drank purified water, received regular mail, had access to medical care, and yes, got ice cream. The contrast was visible to Japanese soldiers who observed American operations before being killed or captured. Japanese prisoner, rare because Japanese rarely surrendered, who survived to experience American captivity, often described overwhelming realization that Japan had no chance. As one captured Japanese officer said after war, "We were told Americans were soft, lazy, decadent. Then I saw American base on Okinawa. Thousands of vehicles, mountains of supplies, soldiers well-fed and healthy, equipment everywhere, and they had ice cream. Ice cream. We could barely get rice. I knew then that our propaganda was lies and we had lost war before it started." This realization that industrial capacity gap was so enormous that America could provide luxuries while Japan couldn't provide necessities broke many Japanese POWs psychologically. Not broke them into madness, but broke their loyalty to militarist cause. POW who understood his nation's inferiority in such concrete terms wasn't going to be fanatic when war ended. He was going to remember ice cream in American camp and wonder why leaders started war they couldn't win. American submarine force demonstrated this luxury in combat concept perfectly. Submarines were dangerous assignment anywhere, but American submarine crews volunteered for multiple patrols despite high casualty rates. Why? Because American submarines, while cramped and dangerous, had best food in the military. Submarine crews ate like officers, steak, fresh vegetables for first weeks of patrol, coffee, and ice cream made fresh using submarine's ice cream machine. Making ice cream on submarine required special equipment and training. Larger fleet submarines had small ice cream makers operated by cooks. Ice cream production used excess capacity of submarines' refrigeration system. Submarines needed extensive refrigeration for food storage on patrols lasting 2 months or more. When refrigeration system had spare capacity, usually toward end of patrol when food stocks depleted, cooks made ice cream using powdered milk, sugar, and whatever flavorings were available.
Submarine crew finishing successful war patrol, sinking Japanese merchantmen and warships, celebrating with ice cream as they approached home port. This image captures American approach to war. Yes, combat was deadly serious, but that didn't mean abandoning pleasures. Crew that fought hard deserved reward. Nation that asked men to risk death in tin cans underwater owed them best possible living conditions while doing it. Post-war interviews with submarine veterans consistently mentioned food, including ice cream, as major factor in morale. One veteran said, "We knew every patrol might be our last. Japs were hunting us. Depth charges could crush the boat any time. But knowing we'd eat well while alive, knowing Navy took care of us, that made it bearable." Ice cream sounds silly, but it mattered, meant someone cared. This sentiment was common. Small comforts accumulated into major morale advantage. European theater conclusion provides perfect illustration of ice cream's symbolic power. May 1945, Germany surrendered unconditionally. American forces occupied Western Germany, while Soviets occupied eastern portions. German civilians in American occupation zone encountered abundance they couldn't comprehend.
Germany was devastated, cities bombed to rubble, infrastructure destroyed, food production collapsed, people starving, economy destroyed. American occupation forces arrived with full logistics capability, including ice cream. Soldiers ate well while German civilians scrounged for food. Initially, this created resentment, victors eating while defeated starved. But American policy shifted quickly to food aid. Occupying armies began distributing food to prevent mass starvation. American soldiers gave food to German children, including ice cream. This simple gesture, enemy soldier giving ice cream to a child of defeated nation, conveyed American intentions more effectively than any propaganda.
German child receiving ice cream from an American GI learned that Americans weren't monsters, weren't there for revenge, wanted to help rather than destroy. These children grew up remembering American generosity, became adults who supported democratic West Germany aligned with America during Cold War. Ice cream was a tiny part of this, but symbols matter. Small kindness makes impression lasting a lifetime. Japan experienced similar dynamic. August 1945, atomic bombs plus Soviet invasion forced Japanese surrender. American occupation began September 1945. Japan faced potential starvation, rice crop failed, fishing fleet destroyed, imports cut off. MacArthur's occupation administration immediately began food aid to prevent mass deaths. American military logistics, which had supplied forces across Pacific, now supplied defeated Japanese population. Japanese civilians received American food aid, including occasional luxuries like chocolate and ice cream. Japanese children who remembered American bombing and propaganda about American brutality now saw American soldiers distributing food and candy. Cognitive dissonance was massive, but ultimately worked in America's favor. Japanese population concluded that American system was superior. Americans could feed defeated enemy while maintaining forces worldwide. Japan embraced democracy, allied with America, became an economic powerhouse. Ice cream and other food aid contributed to this transformation by creating positive associations with American presence.
The industrial logistics behind ice cream deserve final detailed examination because they reveal fundamental reasons America won war. Making ice cream in combat zone required agricultural surplus. America's dairy industry produced massive milk surpluses throughout war despite labor shortages. Government price supports and guaranteed military purchases encouraged production. Dairy farmers expanded herds, increased output, sold milk at good prices. Excess production became military rations, ice cream, cheese, powdered milk. Germany lost dairy production capacity steadily throughout war. Farms lost workers to the military, lost fertilizer to munitions production, lost feed grains to army horses. German milk production declined severely. American production increased. Sugar supply. Ice cream requires substantial sugar. America had access to Caribbean sugar plantations, Hawaiian sugar, domestic beet sugar. America rationed sugar on the home front. Civilians received limited amounts, but military had priority access for all uses, including ice cream. Germany lost access to imported sugar when British Navy blockaded Europe. Germany relied on domestic beet production, never sufficient. German soldiers and civilians experienced severe sugar shortage throughout war. American soldiers got ice cream with sugar content Germans couldn't imagine. Refrigeration technology. Making and distributing ice cream requires reliable refrigeration. America's industrial base mass-produced refrigeration equipment using assembly line methods. Thousands of refrigeration units for military use. Germany struggled to produce enough refrigeration for critical applications like food preservation and medical supplies. America made refrigeration units for ice cream barges and trucks.
Transportation infrastructure. Getting ice cream from factory to soldier required vehicles, ships, fuel, roads, ports, distribution networks. American logistics handled this alongside everything else. Red Ball Express,
truck convoy system supplying armies in France, delivered ammunition, fuel, food, medical supplies, mail, spare parts, and ice cream. German logistics struggled to deliver ammunition consistently. American logistics delivered ice cream to front lines. Electric power. Refrigeration requires electrical power or engine power. American forces could generate power anywhere: portable generators, vehicle engines, ship power systems. American units had electrical capacity for lighting, refrigeration, communications, everything. German forces experienced increasing power shortages as war progressed and fuel supplies dwindled. American soldiers had ice cream maintained at perfect temperature. German soldiers had darkness and cold rations. Manufacturing capacity. All equipment and supplies required manufacturing. Refrigeration units, trucks, ships, ice cream machines, packaging, utensils, all manufactured by American industry operating at unprecedented capacity. America produced ice cream equipment and tanks and planes and ships simultaneously. Germany faced constant zero-sum choices. Resources for one thing meant not having resources for another. America had both guns and butter because industrial base was large enough to produce both. This cumulative advantage, agricultural, industrial, technological, logistical, meant America could do things other nations couldn't dream of attempting. Ice cream was visible proof of this advantage. German POW seeing American soldier casually eating ice cream wasn't seeing dessert. He was seeing evidence that his nation lost before war began, because nation that can provide ice cream to millions of soldiers worldwide simultaneously while fighting total war has industrial capacity beyond any other nation's ability to match.
Final word should go to veterans who experienced this. Post-war oral histories consistently mention ice cream as significant memory. Not most important thing. Combat, casualties, victory mattered more, but memorable detail that symbolized larger truth. One veteran said, "Ice cream meant America hadn't forgotten us. Someone back home cared enough to send ice cream across ocean to jungle or desert where we fought. That mattered more than ice cream itself. Meant we were still Americans, still connected to home, still part of civilization we were fighting to defend." Another veteran, "Germans and Japs couldn't feed their own soldiers. We had ice cream. That told me everything about who was going to win. Not because ice cream won battles, bullets and bombs did that, but because ice cream showed which side had power to support war properly. We never doubted supplies would come. They doubted every day. That made all the difference." Third veteran, submarine sailor. "Ice cream on submarine after successful patrol was taste of victory. We survived another patrol, sank more enemy ships, earned ice cream. Simple pleasure, but meaningful. Reminded us what we were fighting for, not just abstract ideals, but actual good life with actual good things, including ice cream." These testimonies capture essential truth. Ice cream during war wasn't frivolous luxury or wasteful indulgence, was symbol and substance of American advantage. Symbol that America cared for its soldiers, substance that America's industrial capacity could deliver anything, anywhere. German POWs who couldn't believe Americans had ice cream learned a lesson about industrial power that their leaders never understood. You cannot defeat a nation whose capacity is so vast that ice cream in combat zones is routine logistics problem. If America could make ice cream anywhere in world, America could make anything anywhere. Germany and Japan lost war when they started it because competing with that level of power was impossible. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about how America won World War II with overwhelming industrial capacity, providing everything from aircraft carriers to ice cream. Like if this changed how you think about military logistics. Comment with what you think modern military should provide to troops for morale. Share with someone who needs to understand that victory isn't just about weapons, it's about total capability. What will you accomplish when you understand that success means doing not just essential things, but everything, because doing everything proves you cannot be stopped?